Welcome back to the Wedding Buzz. It's your host, Sydney, and today I'm back with my assistant planner, Angela.
Hello, hello.
She's joining me, and we're going to talk about seating charts because everyone needs one, and it's usually something that brides don't think are going to be a pain in the butt, and then they are a pain in the butt. Also, for the first time on the Wedding Buzz, we're getting buzzed on the Wedding Buzz.
Buzzed on the Wedding Buzz.
I think the producers here at the podcast studio think I'm stressed because he was like, "You need a drink." So was that some ASMR for us?
Yes.
Got some White Claws. But anyway, let's talk about seating charts because, like I said, everyone needs one when you're planning a wedding, and it's something that happens at the last minute because you need all your RSVPs back, and then people don't realize how much. Like, I swear, every single bride is like, "This is so annoying," and it's only something that us as planners can help with so much because we don't know your family and we don't know your friends. So
exactly, and they don't realize like how much really goes into it as far as like putting people where they can have conversations or where they, you know, can be able to like, I don't know, dance, or like if someone has hearing, you know, problems.
Yeah,
don't put it by the DJ. Like there's a lot that
people don't want to be right by the DJ.
Right. There's a lot that goes into it that people don't really think about, but
a lot of people also at the last minute try to like, oh, well, we'll just like add another table here, and they don't understand. I'm like, you can't just add another table. We have a rental like order. We have linens. We have florals. Like, you can't just add another table or move a table or something. Like, there's so much that goes into it. So let's talk about, first of all, the pro of a seating chart, because some people are like, why do I even need that? You can do, like, the pro of a seating chart is that it helps everyone know where to go. You can do, of course, if you're going to do assigned tables or assigned seats, you're going to have a seating chart. But I guess the big debate is if you're going to do open seating, where, like, anyone can just sit wherever they want, or assigned tables or assigned seats.
Yeah. I like the whole idea of open seating so people don't feel so constrained, but at the same time that makes it kind of an issue for the kitchen as far as meals. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, like there could be someone who doesn't exactly know, like it could just be an uncomfortable feeling for someone. And I hate to, like, you know, make people feel uncomfortable if they may feel shy or don't really know exactly who to sit with, you know?
Yeah, it definitely, if there's no seating chart at all, people will kind of walk in the room and then do this like deer in the headlights look of where do I go and sit? And the other thing is, yes, doing your seating chart is a pain in the butt, but all of that work that you're doing prior, if you do open seating, you're giving your guests all of that work to do when they walk in, because then they're trying to figure out where should we sit. Oh, I'm here with my husband, or some people are like, I'm here with my husband and my kids, or a group of coworkers wants to sit together, but this table only has like 6 seats, or like, so you go sit, and you're a group of 3 people at this table. Mm-hmm. Well, now there's like 5 seats left, so there's like 2 other couples sit there, and now there's 1 empty seat.
Right.
And so whoever's lingering and the last people to get to the room, they walk in, and it's like, okay, well, there's 1 seat at this table and 1 seat at that table. And it's just kind of chaotic.
Right. And I'd say it is pretty like a normalized thing to have a seating chart at, you know, weddings nowadays. So people will, you know, be going into the reception room and be looking for a seating chart. And then, you know, that creates the problem of, asking everyone, where do I sit? Where do I sit? Like, I don't know, if there is an open table seating chart like that, like where anybody can sit wherever, I feel like you have to have like the DJ or some sort of like making it clear to people.
Yeah, some sort of announcement, which if that's the case, you need to communicate that with your DJ before the wedding day. Because if you just tell them last minute, hey, tell people they can sit where they want, like they're going to be like, what? Like, what am I supposed to tell people? So make sure that it's clear beforehand. If you have a small, like a micro wedding, we're talking like 20 people. Okay, maybe it's not such a big deal because that's going to be your family and friends anyway. Everyone probably knows each other. Not that big of a deal. I still like assigned tables because I'm a planner and maybe a control freak. But you can get by with a small guest count, but not a large one.
Yeah.
If you're doing open seating, it has to be buffet pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do plated, unless there's only one meal choice, but then there's always going to be someone who has an allergy or is
kids,
a vegan.
Kids won't want, specific meals.
Or a kid's
They want chicken nuggets.
They want chicken nuggets. So my thought on open seating is I don't like it, but of course do what you want. So let's move on to assigned tables, because this is one that I actually am okay with, which is where everyone is assigned a table, but not assigned like an exact seat. I feel like we've seen this at a lot of weddings.
Yeah, for sure.
You can still, if it's a plated meal, your servers won't know exactly which seat has which meal, but at least it's like, okay, that table has like 3 chickens and 5 steaks, something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like it flows pretty well.
It does. As far as, we could get an opinion of the servers, like how they feel about that. I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated, but, it's better than no seating chart at all.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that you can do if you're doing assigned tables, but you want like to help the servers out, is do place cards.
Yep.
And instead of like assigned seats would be where the place cards are at the seats already. So there's a seating chart saying, okay, you're at table 8. And then when you get to table 8, there's a seat with your name on it. If you don't want to do that, you just want to do the assigned tables, put the place cards on a table in like the entrance area and color code if they wanted like chicken or steak. And so then when they pick their seat, they put their place card there, and then the servers can see if it's like a different color. Green is chicken, blue is steak.
That's probably my favorite way to, go about it. But there's always going to be last minute changes that make that the end of the world. Like
it's always like, there's things that you can do to make it not so chaotic, but go into it with the expectation, not of chaos, but like it's an ordeal, and it's going to be a project, and start as early as you can. Don't do this the week of your wedding. Don't make I don't want to name names, but we had one that made changes the day before without telling me, which was real frustrating, because then the seating chart was wrong. And
people were asking.
People are asking me, like,
where to go?
Where am I going to go sit? And they had different, like, favors on the table for, like, kids. And they're like, why do I have a kids thing? And why is my...
How does my kid have wine?
We had removed the wine glasses and stuff for the kids, but then they were sitting in the wrong place. And then they're like, why does my kid have wine?
And I think that wedding was also where the family was, like, struggling with addiction, too. So it was...
Yes.
They didn't want the alcohol in front of them. Like, they didn't even want it to be in the picture.
Yeah, and we had specifically taken the glasses and stuff away from a few place settings where they asked us, like, hey, this person has struggled with addiction. Like, they're in recovery. Please, we don't want to, we want to be respectful and just not even, like, put that in front of them. Of course, if you change the seating chart and don't communicate that, it's not going to end well. And that's where I say, like, there's only so much I can do if you're going to make last minute changes. Now, this was like a 5-minute debacle, and like everything was totally fine. We switched it around. Yep. It worked out. No big deal. But you got to keep these things in mind. Like, if you, the night before, even if you have a wedding planner, you have to communicate everything with your wedding planner. Please communicate everything with your wedding planner, because like, if you tell me one thing and then something else is happening, that's where I don't think people realize, like, the trickle effect of, like, oh, we'll just add another table. Well, no, you don't have another table. You don't have another linen. You don't have another, like, chargers and you can't just add that or move that or something. So everything needs to be communicated. And then with assigned seats, it's going to be a lot more work for you on the front end. It is, I guess, nice because the servers can just have that map prior, and they'll know, like, what seat number 1, number 2 is. And so they don't have to ask your guest. I would say that the more, like, elevated a wedding is, the more upscale, you don't typically find servers being like, hey, do you want chicken or steak? Or, like, it just looks better when the servers can, like, place the correct meal, the vegan meals, the whatever, place them in the right spot. But it's a lot of work up front. And I can tell you at my own wedding, there was a few people that didn't sit where I assigned them to sit. And
oh gosh, it's even worse when people show up. And well, actually, it's not as bad, but when you have to, add all that in and like they're not in the seating chart, it's just a lot of like back and forth of where do I sit? I don't have a seat, or I wasn't invited, or whatever the situation may be. But there's always bound to be changes, I feel like.
Yeah, there are going to be changes.
It's a difficult position to have to make a seating chart to do all that, but I feel like, just being prepared. Being prepared is the biggest thing for sure.
Yeah, be prepared and make sure you put your RSVP date early. Like, this isn't a birthday party that you can put the RSVP date for like 5 days before, like whatever. Put it for like 3-4 weeks before, because it takes time. Also, with the physical seating chart, like however you're displaying it, if they're doing like an acrylic sign or something, that needs to be made. And let me tell you, once it's made, they're not changing it.
And it doesn't take 2 days to make.
No.
It takes a long time.
It takes a while. So make sure that the RSVP date is done in advance. And so let's talk about the process of actually doing the seating chart. Like, not physically making it, because hopefully you're going to hire a company or watch a DIY video. That's not what I'm here for. But the logistics of like where do you even get started? So if you're planning your wedding, a lot of people probably are like, I want to get started on this, but they don't have their RSVPs. I would say most people can guess about 90% of their guests whether they're going to say yes or no. You kind of know from talking who's going to say yes or no. So I would start by grouping people. You can do it like in an Excel spreadsheet, or if you're old school and you want to write it out. So I've seen like poster boards. Start grouping people. Put your family together. Put your coworkers together. This is kind of like a puzzle, like making this whole, where is everybody going to fit? Because you have to remember that each table has 8 or 10 or however many seats. So you can only put, you have to like make the groupings and then plug them into the right places. So I would say make your groupings and figure out like, okay, this family has 9 people. Okay, well, is the table going to fit 8 and like one person's an outcast? Or is the table going to fit 10 and you have 1 extra seat? And so I feel like sometimes at weddings, people might be like, half the family's at this table and half the family's at that table. Like, why did they do that? But it's probably because, if there's 9 of you and there's 1 extra seat, that doesn't make sense. Or let's say the table only fits 8, but there's 9 family members. What are you going to do? Kick 1 person to the other table? Right. Yeah. So sometimes you're going to have to split up the family kind of in 2, and you can always try to put the tables as close together as possible.
But at least being able to put them with someone else that they would be able to talk to, not just completely disregarding, who they're seated next to.
Yeah.
Would be a big thing, because there have been times where I feel like one person gets singled out like that, and it's just, like I said, an uncomfortable situation. So
yeah, it is, and you don't want to do that. So I would say like start with your groupings and figure out like which groupings can kind of go together. Like, do you have some family, like, I don't know. For me, I know that like my cousins know some of my friends. So like at my own wedding, I was able to put like my aunt and uncle with my parents and with some of my other, like my parents' friends, and then put my cousins at a table with some of my friends who they know. And it's still like the group of my cousins and the group of my friends, but like we made it fit at the table correctly. It's complicated. It's kind of hard to like talk through this and explain.
My favorite part or way to do it, I guess, would be like the big billboards, and like people get little sticky notes and write out everybody's names. Like, I feel like I'm a visual person. I'm a visual learner. So I feel like that's the easiest way for me to do things. But like, I can see how an Excel spreadsheet would work as far as like tables, or like there's plenty of softwares to be able to put those together.
There are plenty of softwares. I feel like even like, so as a wedding planner, I feel like I need to use these fancy softwares, and like I do at the end, but at the beginning, sometimes the sticky note method is just the easiest way. Like once you get it kind of dialed in, I love using the software to make it like pretty and clean, and you can print it and like, or send it out to the venue, and it helps at the final stages. But at the beginning, like I'm a sticky note person. I have sticky notes like all over the wall in my office at home. It's good.
It works. It's a process, but you know, step by step, you can make it work.
Yeah, you can. So let's talk about some things to like consider. We kind of mentioned it before, but when you're doing your seating chart, obviously you want to consider like how many seats are at the table, what are the friend groups, like putting people. I mean, you got to think about if you're going to a wedding, you don't want to go and sit there and like not know anybody around you.
Yeah.
So try to think about the groupings, but then think about parents, grandparents. Your parents are going to want to probably be near you and want a good view of the dance floor. They're going to want to see your first dance. Your mom's going to want to watch your first dance with your dad.
Yep.
And
be close to the sweetheart table, I'm sure.
Yeah. And his family, I've seen that before where like the bride is like, oh, my family's here. And then his family's in the corner. Like, no, his family wants to see you guys too. His dad is probably going to want to watch the first dance with him and his mom. Of course, every family is different. This is talking very general of the traditional family situations. But think about your parents and where they're going to want to sit. Grandparents. We've definitely had grandparents complain about the speakers.
Oh, yes. Yes. I actually, one wedding, had to go to the closest Publix to go get one of the grandparents some earplugs because he was right next to the DJ. And that, I felt so bad. Okay. I obviously didn't make the seating chart, but you know, there's those things that you don't really think of.
How come, I'm going to be real mean for a second. How come old people can't hear anything, but then the loudspeakers are going to bother them?
I know.
It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, maybe he had hearing aids. He could have turned them down. I don't know.
That's actually true. I know that my grandma has hearing aids, and like, it's almost like a little microphone and a speaker.
Yeah.
That's true. She does get very flustered in like crowds, and when everyone's talking to her at the same time, it just like is overload in her ear. That's actually, I shouldn't be mean. I take back what I said, because if they have hearing aids, I do know that that's like actually really frustrating.
Yeah.
So when you're doing your seating chart, think about that. Think about your grandparents, where they're going to sit, your wedding party. Do you want your friends to be near you? What's your opinion on spouses for the wedding party? Do you like a head table with only the wedding party, or do you like putting the spouses with them?
I mean, a sweetheart table is definitely a lot easier as far as like being able to have the couple enjoy their day, like have a little time for themselves. But head tables, like I've seen giant head tables, like literally probably 20 plus people, like in those big long tables. And, you know, it was just a lot going on, I feel like. And, you know, it was a smaller room. So like, just as far as like moving around, I feel like it was very difficult. Like the bride could barely get her dress out of like the table. So that I think is the biggest like issue there. But I mean, I'm all for it if you want to like have your family and friends with you. Like I know people do like the, what is it? Like they have the bridal party.
Yeah.
Sit with them. Like parents, I've never seen parents
sit
with them there, because they obviously are like the hosts or whatever. They want to be able to talk to the family, but
yeah, it's always the bridesmaids and the groomsmen. But so I guess that is another good point of doing a sweetheart table versus a big head table, where the bride and groom are sitting like with the bridesmaids and groomsmen. I do kind of like the sweetheart table, just because it's like a little bit of privacy that day, like a little time to like kind of talk to each other. And like you said, like the bride getting in and out of like a big table can be kind of difficult.
The biggest issue, yeah.
But I mean, it's of course whatever you want. I think it's like, oh, I want to sit with my friends, but like it can be really overwhelming. It's a lot. So having a little bit of separation. I have seen where people decide to put the sweetheart table like far away, and to me that's a little odd. Yeah, because it's like, why are you so far away? But I do like a sweetheart table. But how about like, so a lot of times people do like the sweetheart table and then a head table of the like the bridesmaids and groomsmen, and putting the spouses like, let's say I'm the bride and you're my bridesmaid. Like, would we let Luke sit with you, or would Luke have to sit at like some other random table?
Ew.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've seen both.
Like I said before, I think you'd want to spend your time with that person, like your significant other. Like, that's kind of like your first meal as a married couple. So, I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I like putting the spouses with the bridesmaid. Like, at my own wedding, like, I let the bridesmaids have their husbands or whatever at the head table. And the groomsmen had, like, their wives or whatever at the head table, too. I just let everyone sit together because I've seen other weddings where it's, like, the spouse is, like, off on their own, and it's, like, this is weird.
Oh, do you mean as far as, like, the bridesmaid spouses?
Yeah, like, the bridesmaid spouses.
That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. I mean, it really is up to the bride, like, bride and groom, how they think people would be most comfortable. I mean, obviously, the bride and groom have a relationship with the bridal party, so they can, you know, have their conversations with them. But if there is a plus one that is, you know, with one of the bridesmaids or whatever, it would be hard to seat them, that other person.
Yeah. I've been the extra person. Like, when I was in college, my boyfriend was in a wedding, and then I didn't know anybody there. And they had a head table, so he was sitting at that head table, and I just was, like, sitting with random people. I mean, I talk way too much, so I made friends. It was fine. But it was, like...
Yeah. I mean...
It was awkward.
I was going to mention, too, the fact that, you know, people already had the ceremony, already had cocktail hours, so you'd think, like, people are, like, opened up a little bit. So, by the time of the reception. So
it's really like,
you can hope.
It's really whatever they want, but I like just put people together. It makes them happier. And then the other thing you want to just think about is if you're going to have the DJ like honor any special guests, of like have your parents stand up, making sure that they're kind of in a central location. So it's not like, oh, and the bride's parents and everyone's looking around.
Yeah.
Like, where are they? And then kids. If you want to do like a kids table, or maybe I would not put kids right by the dance floor or something. So if they're having a temper tantrum in the middle of your first dance, their parents can like take them out of there without it being the focal point of the whole
I definitely
day.
like the idea of a kids table. It just might be kind of hard if they're like very young.
Yeah, if
like,
they're really little.
If they're under a certain age, you'd kind of have an issue with like, you know, dinner, feeding them. But I do like that idea if they are all like, I don't know, what age do you think would be a good
kids table?
Yeah, like above a certain age.
Probably like 8 or so.
8. Yeah.
5 is
pretty
5
young.
is still little.
Yeah.
Depends. It depends, like, if the kids know the other kids at the table, I think. Like, if it's one 5-year-old by themselves and you're just going to go stick them at a table, they're going to be like, what?
Right.
And it depends on their personality, because some 5-year-olds would thrive and they'd be like, look at this, you're all my new best friend. But I'm a big fan of kid-free weddings.
Me too. But, you know, I understand the whole thing of, like, where am I going to put my kid?
Yeah. It's tough. It is. It just depends on the kid, and it depends on the parent. It is hard. I've seen both.
I get both sides. Yeah, exactly.
I get both sides. All right, so let's talk about, like, we kind of touched on doing it electronically. I will say that as far as softwares, have you used any, like, good softwares for seating chart? Because I've used Mary, and I've used All Seated.
IO Planner. I like IO Planner.
IO Planner. Is that the one I used for seating chart?
I think it was All Seated.
Was it All Seated?
Yeah.
But you've used IO Planner for?
I've used IO Planner.
I've used IO Planner for, like, other stuff before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a personal preference, but
there's plenty
if you're a bride
can
listening,
use.
you probably never heard of these. Check out IO Planner, All Seated, or Mary, Merri. My understanding is that I've been trying to, like, force myself to use Mary because it's supposed to be, like, the most advanced, but, like, I'm used to the other ones. So like switching is kind of hard.
I mean, you can definitely try out every single one and see what you like best.
I do know I can speak on all seated, which I think now is called like Prism or something. Yeah. But if you look up like allseated.com, it comes up. It's connected, which I know Mary is too. Aisle Planner might be, I don't know. It's connected to the venues. So the venues can upload their like banquet space or whatever space that you're getting married in, and it has the exact dimensions of the room. So you can actually plan like to do the whole layout of the room like accurately, which you can't do on your poster board. So I'd say start on your poster board and get the hang of it, and then once it gets down to the details and doing the actual layout of the room, definitely use like a software and ask your venue what the dimensions of the room are, and then figure out what the dimensions of your tables are. Because if you have, you know, tables that fit 8 people versus 10 people, are they 72-inch rounds? Are they 60-inch rounds? It's going to make a huge difference. And this is another point where our brides at the last minute are like, oh, just add a table here, move the table there, or whatever. And I'm like, it doesn't fit. And you got to remember, a 72-inch round, then there's the chairs, and then there's the human being sitting in the chairs. Right. Like
in and out all night.
It's more than just 72 inches. You got to think there's the table, and then the human being in the chair, and then like space to walk in and out in between. You don't want people their backs hitting.
That's true.
So you got to think about all these things. If you have a planner, they should help you think about these things. But if you don't have a planner, think about these things.
Have fun.
have so much fun. You're doing it by yourself for the first time. But yeah, I definitely, those softwares are very advanced, and they link up. Yeah, they link up with the venues. You can put in like, you know, the exact dimensions of everything, and then you can assign the seats. So you can. They also have like have you seen the 3D views? So it like really looks like the you can do a 3D view like as if you're walking through the space, which is so cool.
Yeah, and they definitely are pretty advanced, and you know, being able to like, or needing to be someone that can see things in real time, like it helps for sure.
It does help, and you can play with it. So as far as the physical seating chart, it's kind of up to you if you're going to try to do something DIY. If you're going to do just place cards on a table, it's probably the easiest way. You don't have a chart, and you can change those last minute pretty easily. Some people do like a poster. I know on Minted or Etsy, you can get like a poster printed with everything, which those look pretty nice too. You can get fancy and have like an actual company do like acrylic signs. People get all crazy with the seating charts, but you can have fun with it.
Yeah. I'd say on top of that, when you put those signs up, like we've had a lot of issues with either an outdoor wedding and the signs falling, or like just being like, I guess really just having something that can actually hold the seating chart in place.
Yes.
If they're a big sign, if they're a big acrylic sign like that, like I feel like there have been many times where you have to go and fix it throughout the day, or it's like on the floor.
Yeah, seating charts fall over, especially if you're doing them outside and it's windy, and
or bring sandbags or something, anything in the world.
And it's way more annoying than people think it is, trying to fill a bag with sand.
Yeah. That's why I like those big block
look
ones.
That nice. Yeah. Just make sure that the structure is actually a structure and will stand up on its own.
Exactly.
It's not going to be falling over, because even like I've taped and zip tied and whatever the poster to the actual stand, but then the whole stand falls over. Also, you weren't with me at this one, but I had like an easel. It was like a wooden easel, because it looked cuter than like a black one or whatever. Yeah. It like snapped in half. Literally snapped in half. Thank God, I don't know why. I ordered 2, and so I had another one, but it snapped in half, and I was real annoyed. It was like one like with the screw on the back where you like tighten it.
Yeah.
And we like tightened it a little too much, and the wood just snapped in half. And I was like, are you kidding me? We had the one with like, they put sandbags on the bottom.
Yeah.
But it looked ugly. Yeah. And then people were like almost tripping over the sandbags.
Right.
Which like, this was, they were like, oh yeah, I got the seating chart. It's done. It's not like I really had a say in it, but I like, you know, actual structures. Or if you're inside and it's not a wind thing, you should be okay. But
yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's why I like those big blocks that you just like stick the whole acrylic thing into and it doesn't go anywhere.
Doesn't go anywhere. Something easy to read.
Yeah.
Remember, weddings, like, at this point, it's probably not super bright outside. It might
a lot
be
of people
dark.
do them on the clear acrylics, too, and that, I would say, is hard to see through. Hard to read.
Hard to read. Same thing with your table numbers. People often do, like, a weird font or something, and it's hard to read, and then guests are like, what is happening? So definitely make sure that it's easy to read. And then the last thing I'd really say is just review it a few times when you're done. Send it to your planner. Make sure that if you have a planner or coordinator that they're reviewing it, that you go over the layout. If you made any changes, tell them about changes, and then send it to your venue as well, because it will probably help their catering team, like their servers and all of that. Or if it's a venue that doesn't have a catering team, maybe send it to the caterer as well. If it's a buffet, they might not care, but if their team is clearing tables, bussing tables, or anything for you, same with bartenders, just send it to them. Say like, hey, here's the layout, here's the seating chart. If you want it, it can really help. If they don't want it, oh well, it's just an email that you sent. But
helps them prepare for sure.
Communication is key. So I hope that helped a little bit. I don't know if it actually was helpful or if we just kind of talked about how hard it is to make a seating chart.
I'd say it's pretty helpful.
It's not that hard. It's just that if you don't know,
time-consuming.
It's time-consuming. Tedious.
But it's not hard. Like, if you know these people, it should be a walk in the park.
Yeah, it's just it's probably more time consuming than people think and tedious. And then when your guests are changing their RSVPs, yes, no, oh, I'm coming, I'm not coming, that's where it gets really frustrating. So you kind of have to stick to, like, I need a final answer.
Right.
I also would say, if someone says, no, I'm not coming, and then a couple weeks later, they're like, oh my God, something cleared up, I can come. It's really hard to be like, no, you can't come anymore. So as you're doing your seating chart, maybe just leave a few extra seats.
Yeah.
Somewhere around the room, I would leave a few extra seats, which a lot of the time people have anyway, because the tables are either seating 8 or 10, and the chances that you have that exact number of guests is kind of hard anyway. So I just always like to plan, like, you never know. There's always Uncle Joe Schmo who decided to show up even though he said no or wasn't invited or something. But I love when we do have, like, a little extra space that we can say, you know what, no problem. Table 5.
It works out nicely.
Yep, table 5. Here we go. We got a place setting for you.
Yep.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. But anyway, if you have questions with your seating chart, we'd be happy to help you. Reach out. But thanks for joining me.
Of course.
You guys, I asked Angela to do this podcast with me like 4 hours ago.
A few hours ago.
I was going to do a solo episode, and I was like, that's just not as fun. No one wants to hear me talking to myself.
I'm always available.
I was like, come over. So thanks for joining me. And we'll see you guys next time. If you're looking for wedding planning services, check us out on delightfulplanning.com. Email me, Sydney@delightfulplanning.com. Boom. And yeah, I'd love to help you. Bye, guys.